For centuries, nomadic pastoralists have maintained a sustainable and mobile lifestyle, traveling between designated pastures every season. But their world is shrinking, and many of them are now living in the outer fringes of the new one. And with nowhere to go, the lot of them are now in the horns of a dilemma. Shadowed in the vari-colored lofty buildings in the back, the trappings of an endangered lifestyle lie in plain sight. These settlements, which once stood unmistakably in the countryside, are now out of view, fated to the fringes of urban life, its inhabitants living an equally invisible life. Tajeo Kimer and his family may have recreated a rural frame here, but following a disastrously long dry spell, they were forced from their home in Magadi, Kajiado County, and into the city to survive. That's how they ended up here, outside Nairobi's Greenspan estate.
Kiangazi ndio nasumbua. Sasa nakuja hapa shauri ya kiangazi. Sasa ni jua hainyezi, usinyesha siku mbili sasa namaliza naisha. Nabaki sasa nakuja Nairobi kutafuta nyasi tu. Mbeleni sasa hakuna kiangazi kama sasa. Kiangazi siku hizi ni siku hizi iko na kiangazi, lakini zamani hakuna. Kidogo tu baada mwezi moja mbili na nyesha. Lakini sasa siku hizi nakaa karibu mwaka mbili bila kunyesha. Sasa nakukaa tu, ibidi ng'ombe kule makarasi, ibidi ng'ombe kule ende tanga. Kuna sasa tembea tu. Angalia kama tapata makanda nini. Sasa Nairobi sasa ikuwa wazali, maana Nairobi iko na mvua, hakuna nini, hakuna kwetu Masaini hakuna mvua.
The newcomers have found the city quite disorienting.
Unajua hiyo nini, Nairobi sasa ni shida ya watu, maana watu kila mtu iko na tabia yake. Sasa mwingine hataki kuona ng'ombe hapa hata kama iko na nyasi. Nasema hataki kuona. Hataki kuona, najua hataki chafu ya ng'ombe. Nasema ni chafu hata kama mwenyewe nakuja kuchukua maziwa, lakini sasa hataki kuona ng'ombe na inataka maziwa. Sasa ndio maana sio nasumbua na hivyo. Sasa sisi nibidi kungangana na ng'ombe, maana hakuna kitu kingine nijua itu hiyo.
The scale of the rural to urban migration is extraordinary. Such unplanned blocks sticking out from the hodgepodge of new skyscrapers are not uncommon in many parts of a city. Tajeo, like many herders struggling to fit into a changing world, knows he faces an uncertain future, but he has few options.
Nimekuwa korsea kama 100 na sasa nabaia 50. Nimekuwa shauri ya karatasi, shauri ya nini ya kiangazi tu. Shauri masitima ndio naua mingi. Masitima magari na gonga. Taendelea tu, maana ng'ombe sasa tafanyia nini? Hakuna kazi nyingine nafanya. Hajui maneno kazi nyingine, ni kazi ya ng'ombe tu najua. Ng'ombe sasa hata kama kukosa mahali ya kulisha, tangangana tu, maana sasa hakuna mahali nyingine, hajui benki, hajui manyumba, hakuna nini, hakuna pesa. Pesa hii ni yetu ni ng'ombe. Kama hakuna ng'ombe sasa ni sasa kufa na njaa.
He wishes he could go back home, but he can't. The land there has become desert-like. The grass is thinning out. There is much less rain now.
Hata watu wengine nasema we hamini, maana kwa nini haendi kwenyu? Sasa nasema ambia jenyesha, hata watu najua. Sasa kuenda saa hii vumbi tu natoka.
But in areas where it has rained, the transformation is startling. This herd in Angata Werikoi village in Samburu County survived the long dry. The lean season ended with the rains. It's a season of plenty now. And for a community that lives at the mercy of the rains, it relishes the generosity of the skies.
At least we can have proper tea with milk. Before, during the dry season, we could only have black tea.
The rains that have been falling over these lands have transformed it into a verdant green, adding some color into what was once a lifeless expanse. It is a happy season. The cows don't venture very far away from home, But in these endless cycles of scarcity and plenty, this doesn't last for very long. In an area bouncing with life, also still alive are memories of death and the past dry season. The rains have offered no respite for 71-year-old Natoron Lol Kitekwi. My life is over, he tells us, as he limps across his empty shed, now overgrown with weeds. During the drought, his son and other Morans from their small Lariakorok village in Samburu County tore across the savannah, driving their animals down to Laikipia County. It was a desperate march in search of grazing land. Pasture in their home area had dwindled, beset by a long drought that saw their family herd shrink, leaving them a harvest of carcasses. But the trip in search of a reprieve still left them with carcasses to collect.
Ng'ombe tu yote ile watu yote na kwenda tafuta majani. Sasa wakati hivyo shauri ya taabu tu ng'ombe na kwenda tafuta majani. Nasikia ng'ombe yote naoa. Hata mimi bado kanyaga. Na kwenda pata nusu ile ng'ombe 12. Mimi narudisha nyumbani. Mpaka sasa ng'ombe 5 iko nini? Sharaa. Nakuja hapa mpaka ng'ombe ingine 2 nakupa. Hii mali yangu hapana ya mtu mwingine. Na mimi hapana iba.
"55 of his animals were shot and killed in a government operation to rid Laikipia of what was said to be an army of grass guzzlers who had invaded privately owned land."
Kati ile asalewa mimi bado omba mtu kitu. Ile mali yangu mimi nachunga. Na mtu tu na watu. Mimi hakuna makosa ya mtu mwingine. Ng'ombe tunakwenda kula majani tu ya Mungu. Sasa watoto sasa mimi iko naye shule sasa nasomea nini? Ng'ombe hii hakuna shida ile ya Mungu naoa. Mimi tu naoa.
The lack of pasture or drought is not a new phenomenon. And I think every 5-7 years we have a significant drought. And many times pastoralists have moved their herds all the way up to Mount Kenya, next door here, and into Aberdare. Now, through the grasslands and areas of Laikipia to Aberdare forest in search of pasture. So cattle movement is not a new thing. And drought is also not a new thing. What is new is the political agitation basically aimed at a land grab in Laikipia. I think that is what is new. The rest of it is not new. The climate did not just change last year. It's not the first time we are having drought. And people have always negotiated grazing rights. So it's not the first time that, say, pastoralists from Isiolo or Baringo or Samburu or indeed Laikipia have looked for places to graze their cattle.
In the deadly unrest that pitted major landowners, local smallholders, and security forces against armed cattle herders for months, local pastoralist communities claimed the government employed a standard prescription, a collective punishment for the crimes committed by the armed herders, most of whom had already gone back to their homes in Samburu and Baringo counties.
Na hapa hapana shamba ya mtu pale sinakaa. Hapa ni ADC, Pandele George, hapa ni Karai. Sasa sasa ile dalili kukuja, sisi hata bado wana kitu kama hii. Mtu yuko hapa maka 20, maka mingi, bado wana kitu kama hii. Hakuna kitu naongea naleta mpaka kifaru. Kifaru mwenyewe. Ndio nasimama pale, au nakuja kuchoma manyumba. Na serikali. Hata wasipatia notice kuhama. Hata wasimwambia aingia atoa kitu yako nataka atakani area hii. hata iko manyumba huko juu. Wakati bado ingia, akapiga sijui kitu gani, pop, na risasi, nyumba akawaka peke yake. Kama alikuwa mtu yuko ndani, sasa kashomaka.
It was an exchange of fire for fire, as a trail of destruction and death followed the herders as they burrowed through privately owned land, often running into conflict with the owners. Police were called in to the bowels of Laikipia's thick bush to stop what the government said was a violent land grab. In the operation, hundreds of cattle were killed.
Between August, the last general election, and a year before that, so August 2016, 11 police officers have been killed in this county, and 17 citizens have been killed in this county. 13 police officers injured, and 27 private citizens injured. I think where I have differed with people, or some people anyway, is that, look, can we in good conscience say that the lives of these 11 police officers and 17 civilians do not matter? Can we really say that? And I'm not even talking of property destroyed, because of course this conversation has come about because of destruction of property, that animals were killed in a confrontation. Is property not the same? And we don't condone any property being destroyed. But I think whether it is your mobile phone or your cow or your house or your ranch, we should treat property the same. We cannot say that some property is more important, therefore we are more aggrieved.
While the line of fences closing in large tracts of private land is the most visible evidence of Laikipia's divide, the sense of division and inequality runs right through the historical core of the county. There have long been tensions over land and grazing in the region. Much of the land is owned by private ranchers who mix cattle breeding with high-end tourism. Many of the owners of these biggest properties are white, but they have been there for generations. In lean times, local herders have been allowed to graze on parts of these vast estates, a practice that has helped keep tensions to a minimum. Jarso Moku, a pastoralist and leader from northern Kenya and chief executive of the Drylands Learning and Capacity Building Initiative, reckons that there is intensified pressure on much of the country's pastoral land. The land at their disposal is smaller now. And in such places where the rains are fickle and the climate harsh, pastoralists have driven their cattle into areas normally off limits, and as such, conflicts will likely occur.
For pastoralism to thrive and produce, they just need water and pasture. It's a very simple system. Laikipia has been part of that system of where pastoralists have demarcated land. So when it is dry in Samburu, when it is dry in Isiolo, when it is dry in West Pokot, for example, they used to come graze there freely and go back. But because of, the population growth, land use pattern, farming first, later wildlife, conservancies, the land is enclosed. So the free movement is no longer there. The land is now private. If you go in, even as an individual with the animals, legally you are trespassing. But according to the pastoralist, who has used this for centuries and many years, it's the same land.
But the government's response to these conflicts, he says, is typical. It is the oldest entry in its playbook.
I remember me and my brother, my elder brother, we were looking after animals as young boys. There was the tension between, the Kenya government. There's civil war going on. We are not aware. We're just herding animals. So the military were pursuing the bandits. And they found us looking after animals. They decided to shoot all the animals dead. I was young, they captured me, and my brother ran away. The idea they had, which I later came to discover, was they think, or they perceived, this is source of food for the people, the insurgency that was fighting Kenya.
Such mistaken beliefs about pastoralists, he says, have only added to their marginalization. Public policy in support of pastoralism has also been feeble at best.
The figures are even estimates. We don't know whether in Kenya the pastoralist land is 66%, 70%, 80%. In some documents they say it's 90%. I remember one of the droughts, His Excellency the President Daniel Arap Moi even decided to open up State House to the pastoralists to graze there. That was a crisis response. But if there was a national policy, there would have been mechanism in place, just like we'll plan to any other production system, coffee, tea, maize, paretharam, whatever it is.
Traditionally, pastoral communities used land collectively, applying customary laws and norms to manage the land and available pasture. The elders would, for instance, determine the grazing patterns, when to migrate, and would negotiate for pasture when they went to a foreign land.
Ile wasee nasaidiana kama wasee kubwa kama mimi, nasema tafadhali kufunga faili moja na kwa kama miezi 3, ile kila mtu nasikia amri, hapana kanyanga. Iko kama napita miezi 3, ile miezi 4 napungua mpaka watu wote naingia. Hii kitu ya siku hizi hata mimi nashangaa, ile kama ile pali kama anapungia nini nyasi, hapana sikia watu wengine na kwenda tu nini kama na kwenda tu, hata ile mimi nashinda ile mambo ya siku hizi, ana watu hakuna haya.
Historically, this nomadic lifestyle, traversing the land in rhythm with livestock in search of pasture and following the rains, sustained them in harsh times. But areas that for years provided grazing grounds for their livestock have been built over with commercial properties and gated communities. The unprecedented urban growth has led to an increased demand for land. And as more pasture land is absorbed into the changing world, the ancient herding lifestyle is disappearing with it.
Pastoralists in Kajiado and any other places, like for example Isiolo with the Resort City coming, what happens to the pastoralists in Nairobi will happen to them. There's no doubt about that. We shouldn't stop Nairobi coming up, or Isiolo Resort City coming up, or Kajiado becoming a big city, because it's driven by demand. For example, in Spain, it's become very interesting now when they go up the mountain or during dry time, and they go down during winter, they go down and they pass through the city of Madrid. Millions of sheep. And it's regulated. The government has organized that just like they will organize the hat run.
But it's not as orderly here.
The land has become smaller. There are fences all around now. The severe drought has forced us to push our animals to Laikipia. But we are unwanted there, so we are just waiting to see how life will be. If it continues like this, we don't know where we will be. Our livelihood is dead. We will all be wiped out.
Around the world, cattle is kept in feedlots. Because it's not just in Kenya where we keep cattle. Texas and many other places is cattle. Botswana, around the corner here, is cattle. Namibia, South Africa, Australia. Look, so, you know, we are not unique that we keep cattle. I think our uniqueness is the amount of fitina we want to put into the whole business. Those who claim that the only way for us to keep cattle is only if we are walking cattle for hundreds of kilometers to look for pasture, I think they don't mean as well. They really don't.
But many of these communities are fiercely proud of their age-old nomadic ways. Change is a difficult subject.
You know, culture is very interesting. Remember my late dad, one time I took some oxen off the herd without his proper permission, sold them and put that money into a bank. And I walked home And he asked me, kijana wapi ndume? And I said, Dad, I sold them. So it's like, so where is the money? And I told him, Dad, I've taken money to the bank. Then he asked, You can imagine now, this person now changing from the way he believes in the cattle and doesn't want to hear about the money, or believes that the money you can bank and do things, and telling him now, you need to change or sell some of these cows and do 1, 2, 3, 4 things. That is quite difficult. And I fear most of the pastoralists will have to learn things the hard way.
Gabriel has been helping his community back at the Ilngwesi Community Ranch in Laikipia to look into the future. The community plants grass and keeps reserves of fodder and hay for use during the dry season.
Pastoralism is going to be there, but give a span of 10 years, it will be a totally different form of pastoralism. Our population is sort of increasing day by day. 10 years down the line, there used to be 2 families here, but now you can count 20 plus, and everybody would like to stay. So the natural resources are getting stretched. Probably we'll move into thinking now as a ranch, what's the carrying capacity of our land? Then what should we do? I know it's a very, very challenging topic to get involved with the Maasais, because owning a cow, owning cattle is prestige. It's showing who you are, what you do.
But this move, Gabriel says, is only a drop in the ocean. The group ranch too bore the brunt of the violence in Laikipia during the past dry season.
What's happening, for example, in Laikipia, because Ilngwesi is in Laikipia, it's just because a result of that. People come over, and because there's no grass probably in Samburu, in Isiolo, in community lands within Laikipia, the only other place where they see pasture is on the private ranches, simply because they took the management aspect seriously, and they know that this is what our land can carry, this is the amount of goats, this is what. And now people are coming using force to get into it.
But it all adds to the host of thorny questions on the future of this age-old system that has supported hundreds of thousands of lives for years.
My sense is that it actually has a bright future, not in the manner of perhaps walking cattle across several counties, but I think that livestock production is in fact where we can expect a lot of gains. How much cattle or livestock can we keep per acre or per hectare? If we adopt this basic modern technology, feedlots, we can increase the number of animals 100-fold. Some basic value addition, like tanning the hide and then making shoes or wallets or whatever. And you increase value 300-400%.
Maisha mfuaji itakuwa ngumu sana, maana sasa itakuwaje? Sasa kama nyasi yanaisha, itakuwa ngumu, itakuwa na tanga tu.
And you want to tell this fellow now, it's time, please change this because it's not supported by the current environment, and move into this direction. It's never easy. It's never easy. So I think it's something that need to be worked a lot, because this is behavior change. Because if that one doesn't happen, then what will happen is now nature will change you. You'll wake up one morning, you've got 100 herds of cattle, all of them die, and you're left 0.
Sheila Sendeyo, NTV.